in brightest day, in blackest night. All other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power. Oranges lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal. Yellow scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Mars face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light. Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Bokelman.
I'm Mark Marble.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 591.
Woohoo!
Creeping ever closer to 600. God, I can't believe we've been doing this long.
It feels like just yesterday.
No, it doesn't. Not at all. It's kind of scary when you think about it. What, 170? From 170, and now here we are.
Well, what are we talking about tonight?
Obviously, reflecting upon this journey, it's time to retire. We're going to be talking about Green Lantern number 20. I was going to say what part this is in Fractured Spectrum, but who the hell even knows anymore? What would it be? It would be like 4 or something like that, or 3 or yeah, it probably would be 4 technically. But they don't. I don't think they really have those. They don't really have a part on this, do they? At the end, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
I'm double checking now because this.
I'm in the solicits right now.
No,
well,
no,
I mean,
no.
not in the.
Well, I'm just going by the title of the issue to see if they said like, because this is one of those issues annoyingly where the title page is the last page. So I just was double checking to make sure I didn't say like Fractured Spectrum Part 4. It's like, no. All right, so let's dive into this because this is a tale of 2 stories in one issue. One somewhat interesting, one not really interesting at all, at least from my perspective. So if you remembered where we left off last issue, and based on the sales for Green Lantern 19, not many of you might, but Hal was dealing with this Red Lantern on this planet, on Altion X. And now we get the backstory of where this Red Lantern came from. He is Erastus the blacksmith. And the one thing this issue does do a good job with is they really make you feel sorry for this guy. This guy really has a shitty life. And so you can certainly understand why in a universe where anybody who really gets pushed to the brink and is any single emotion is welling up inside you over and over again, or gradually building to the point of implosion, that why he would turn red. So he's a blacksmith. He gets mistreated by, he's building this special weapon for the boss of his town, who is expecting to be paid handsomely. And of course, the boss just says, well, you owe so much in taxes anyway. It's like, I'm not going to bother paying you, but I'm nice. So basically, I'll forego your taxes for this month. Not quite. Not what he was looking for. He goes home to his pseudo wife, Aileen, who, what would you say, Chad? She's a Jade level hoe? Or is she worse? She's probably worse than Jade, right?
Well, so, without getting into it, there's a part of me that obviously understands where Jade is coming from, but, at this point, I'm just going to always stick with it. If somebody just disappears on you, it's kind of shitty for you to expect them to wait for you. So, I kind of agree with Jade in that regard, but I still hate her. But, so, yeah, this person is doing this on purpose. Yeah, with the intent of malice.
Yeah, Aileen's like a alpha level hoe, pretty much. She not only is going out hoeing around on Erastus, she's like throwing it in his face. It's like, I'm gonna come home eventually, probably. Doesn't really matter. After the guy just had this really crappy experience with the boss, he comes home and deals with this skank. Then later on, he goes out for a walk. He gets accosted and he gets robbed. Not that he barely has anything anyway, but he gets robbed. And he reaches for his blacksmith's hammer. Then he bumps into Aileen and the guy she's banging, and both of them mock Erastus to his face. And that pretty much is the final catalyst where all this rage just comes over him, and that's why he's using, the hammer as his weapon of choice, because he was a blacksmith. And that's the backstory where we cut to Hal fighting him, trying to do his best first to take this guy down, but also to talk him down, I should say. But it doesn't really work because the way the emotional spectrum is probably working, that even if there's a chance that he could pull off what Sinestro did, which would be harder anyway, because rage is a much tougher emotion, as we understand, to control than fear is. But Hal fails pretty much at this early on, and he finds all these bodies, including the boss, that has the blade that Erastus made for him, jammed into his chest with the with the little note, payment due, Erastus the blacksmith, attached to the sword through his chest. Now we cut to the second story, which to me I don't really give a crap about based on the way it plays out. We're at the source wall now. Why don't you tell me that? Last time I
don't know. I don't know how it got back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because I was gonna say, and I wasn't gonna put the pressure on you. I was gonna say, if you actually knew the answer, feel free to tell us later on, because last I understood, the friggin' source wall was completely destroyed. But apparently, never mind. The source wall in some way, shape, or form exists, and Kyle, Odyssey, Superboy are there looking for an orb of power, which can power a central power battery, in theory. That's the ongoing theory in this. And somehow there's part of the source wall which isn't actually truly sentient, so wasn't a sentient being formed or merged into the wall. It's a machine, it's a building. Basically, it's a building. So they were able to get into it, and in here is where the orb is supposed to be. And Kyle channels his inner Indiana Jones. The three of them with a lot of banter and to me, there's a whole lot of sexual energy going on in this between the three of them, mostly between Odyssey and Superboy, which kind of it didn't do much for me, honestly. We cut back to Hal with Erastus, and he's really not doing well here. And I do like the Roman or Spartan armor that he puts on to square off with him. But eventually, this confrontation ends on its own because the rage in Erastus gets literally to the boiling point where he literally explodes. And that's the end of that. And you kind of see he disappears, and the energy construct hammer just turns back into the regular hammer. And I do like the moment of silence when Hal even though Hal doesn't really understand this guy's backstory like we do, but just absorbing everything that just happened here, how the emotional spectrum is so wonky that you literally can overload on an emotion and self-destruct. We come back to the source wall. They find the orb. They get the orb. They escape, and they're all happy as the Promethean, the fake Promethean Titan collapses. The building collapses. It's like, wow, and everything in there probably was worth a fortune, but it's not all lost, Connor says, because we have the source. Just as they're saying that, it's like, well, that's great because you've saved us so much work, and we see Starbreaker and Sorrow basically waiting for them. That ends the issue. The issue was titled "The Life and Death of Erastus the Blacksmith." Jeremy Adams, writer; Jack Herbert, artist; colorist Romulo Fajardo Jr., Dave Sharp, letterer; Ariel Colon, cover artist; variant cover artist Stefan. Excuse me, I don't know why I said Stefan. And my brain's wandering. I was being creative. Steven Segovia, Fernando Blanco, Michael Allred, and Laura Allred. Assistant editor Jillian Grant, editor Paul Kaminsky, and a Superboy Jerry Siegel credit, even though, of course, this is not anywhere near that Superboy. But I guess contracts are contracts. And then next issue, Starbreaker and Sorrow versus Superboy and Kyle. So what does Odyssey do? But nonetheless. All right, so what do you think about this?
Well, just source wall stuff really quick. For everybody who knows like the World Forger and the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor, all three of those guys are apparently brothers. Perpetua is their mother. Perpetua tried to do I think it was like a Year of the Villain thing, and then went into death metal or whatever. She basically tried to not let creation take its own path, and like I don't know if she was trying to destroy everything or she was trying to do something bad, whatever the a big cosmic villain would do, which caused her sons, the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger, to rise up against her and imprison her. That is the quote unquote in continuity origin of the source wall. She was trying to do something with the source energy or something like that. They imprisoned her and her army. That's all the people on the source wall when you see the source wall depicted. So Perpetua and her army. I assume since Perpetua got loose when the source wall was destroyed, that somehow they had to imprison her and her army again, and that's how it got back. I don't know. I don't know when that happened. But that's as much as I know, because I don't actually know what happened after that fact. As for the story, it's weird how this is turned on its head, because you would think the guy with all the experience on all the rings would be encountering the people who are spontaneously generating these emotions so he can talk them through things, while the guy who's a literal Harrison Ford stand-in type character would be doing the Indiana Jones adventure quest.
Yeah, I would think that would be the case. It is, even though your premise is correct. I happen to think the house part of the story is much more interesting. So I guess in a way it kind of turned out for the better. But yeah, I guess clearly from a Deus Ex Machina perspective, they wanted to have this trio for whatever reason. Maybe it'll make more sense when we see next issue in this when they square off against Starbreaker and Sorrow. The odds are overwhelmingly in favor they're going to lose because it's how early on in the story they are in. But maybe it'll make more sense. But yeah, I would say that your assessment is correct. Yeah, Kyle would probably be able to relate better, and Kyle would have a chance to be able to at least. But then again, Kyle is so screwed up when it comes to the emotional spectrum. Maybe anybody who's going to be channeling one emotion in such a powerful way is going to throw him off, and he's going to be sitting in the corner holding his legs again, so holding his knees. So you have to factor that in too. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not as mad at that because I just think the it makes sense. I'm just happy to see Kyle, to be honest, and it's not like he doesn't belong in the story we're telling him in, because he gets to be geeky with the Indiana Jones reference and all of that stuff. He gets to be with Connor. So you have that tie in there. There was always a woman of some kind around Kyle. It doesn't have to necessarily be someone interested in him. So just to have a girl around is kind of part of the equation, I think, with Kyle in some respects, whether it's a romantic interest or a teammate or what. There was kind of always somebody around Kyle. So I don't dislike it. I don't know. I think this was a fairly predictable issue. If I'm like, yeah, you knew the entire time that they were after these pieces, so of course we're going to run into them while we're trying to collect these pieces. And surprise, surprise, we go after the very first one, and we're already encountering. So okay. At least the story's moving forward, and we don't have to we got the first piece, and then we're going to encounter them at the second. So, you're not delaying the inevitable. It's just kind of coincidental, I guess, it happened in the first one, but whatever. And you're also kind of laying the stakes for what it means for people to be spontaneously generating emotional energy like this. I mean, ultimately, you tell a story about a guy who you do a successful job at making us feel sorry for him and everything, so his loss means something. But at the same time, he's really essentially just fodder for us to understand the stakes. But did we need that? I don't know. I'm not here to say one way or the other, yes or no. It just feels like this is all. This issue was just a lot of staging ground, to be honest with you.
I mean, this was another issue that was this was one of those fast reads again. This was a fast read, and which is appreciated once in a while, because sometimes it even if there's not a lot going on, it's kind of nice not to have to spend so much time analyzing but like you said, this was predictable, but not necessarily. But to me, it was kind of annoying because it's like it goes back to that whole massive assumption that again, you tell a big enough lie often enough, people will believe it. It's like everybody just automatically accepts that the reason why they stole the Book of Oa was to build a central power battery. So you accept that, then it's like, oh, all these pieces. Which again, if they really wanted to build a central power battery, why didn't they just steal a Guardian? Why didn't they just? Now these guys might be clueless, but theoretically, maybe they're not. But they could have stole Ganthet. We know Ganthet's out there. Isn't Sade still out there somewhere? But they could steal Ganthet. We know he's got to be out of and our boy with the Indigo tribe. But the reality is, you would think it's almost like you would find out all the pieces you would need, and it's like you don't necessarily go gather them, but you stake lanterns out like undercover around them. So the first time one of these pieces is in danger, then basically the whole Green Lantern Corps knows. So then they can then you can go grab the other pieces because only one piece is being it's under attack at the moment. Now is the perfect time to gather the other ones. This reminds me of the biggest flaw in those two Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movies. Is that I think both movies had the same basic flaw, which was the bad guys were trying to get these pieces to put together, to put the thing together to do a bad thing with, and you already had one of the pieces, so why don't you just goddamn destroy it instead of carrying it with you so they can take it from you and then put all the pieces together? It's like you have one piece. They can't do something without it. Now you might not be able to destroy this thing, but so I'm not saying it's a perfect analogy, but it reminds me of that. It's like you literally are. It's like the lack of vision where you're putting yourself in position to hand the item that you want to keep out of the harm's reach and keep out of their grasp, and you're almost like putting it on a silver platter. I don't know. I honestly I don't really see this Starbreaker Sorrow fight against Kyle and Connor being particularly challenging for Starbreaker and Sorrow. I'm sorry. I think that they may drag it out for a whole issue. If that's the only story that we're being told, which it probably won't be. It might be the main story. But somehow I would be surprised if that doesn't really end with Kyle and Connor getting their asses pretty easily handed to them by the end of issue. And okay, we have the first piece. Now we have to go defend. It's okay. It's like I said, to me the best thing about the issue was I felt sorry for this guy. I felt sorry for the blacksmith. And they can understand why he would turn to the dark side pretty much. That's about it for me. Hal was fine. The characters, for the most part, Hal was Hal, and that was okay. But I didn't care much about the Connor, Kyle. If I was just Kyle and Connor, I think that would be okay. Throwing this character in who most people don't know anyway, and then there's obviously some sexual tension going on there, even if it's just mostly between Odyssey and Connor. But it's just the humor, and it's like it just doesn't really work for me.
Yeah, I will say I did appreciate that Hal tried to take a smart approach to all this instead of barreling his way into it. He tried to figure out what this guy's trigger was to try and approach him the right way, because he didn't want things. It's not like Hal's like the kind of person who's just out for blood all the time. So it's not particularly shocking, but I like that he was trying to be methodical about it.
Yeah, I do too. I think, and like I mentioned, this is a much more daunting task, especially for someone who obviously has some experience with being read, but not much, and it was a long time ago. And he certainly didn't have any positive experience of really being in control of it, like let's say Guy would have had, or even Sinestro for that matter. The reality is it's a much harder ledge to walk and talk somebody off of, and I think. But again, it does kind of suck though on that level, because it's like Sinestro had an easier task, but you saw Sinestro succeed at it. So it does kind of suck that you see Hal in his first opportunity to do something similar, and he fails. But it is, like I said, it's arguably the toughest. It is the toughest emotion to try to walk somebody and talk somebody off the ledge from, because if they've completely given into it, they tend to be mindless, because that's the way most Red Lanterns have historically been. Certainly, new Red Lanterns are almost always that way. So
I guess we're supposed to be seeing Atrocitus soon, then, right? Solicit wise.
Yeah, this will probably be our sad sack version of Atrocitus. Like we got sad sack St. Walker back in the Venditti days. Which has to suck. I mean, again, it's the idea that, hey, you got these random people who are pushed to the edge, and then this emotion can just, whatever they're feeling can take them over. Meanwhile, you have somebody like Atrocitus, so you would think the mere fact that he's being denied the power that he should have, that alone should make him angry enough to be able to channel the emotion. But apparently that's not going to work that way. So maybe we'll get more of an explanation of how this is, what's going on.
Yeah.
But
We really need it. Like we need an explanation as to why the people who essentially have been heads of the cores all these years cannot generate their own when they're trying and have an intimate understanding of that emotion.
yeah, I think that would be very, very beneficial. And Atrocitus, he's another character, just like Larfleeze. He's really been crapped on so much over the past umpteen years that it's time to try to build his character back up again. That would be something if that could happen by the end of this arc in some way, shape, or form. That would be beneficial because let's be honest, the closest thing he's gotten to like any kind of victory over the last few years was that first arc in the Green Lanterns book, and that's only because his main goal was always just to plant the rage seed. That was that. Doing that and getting away with it was his victory, not actually being able to beat Jessica and Simon. And his goal was just basically to plant that seed and and no one know about it and have it continue to grow and grow it to make a new entity. Maybe that's how we'll get the resolution. Maybe eventually Atrocitus will just end up being the host to the Red Lantern entity.
All right, sounds good. All right, that's that. So what's next?
Well, you're excited. Well, you might be more excited about this than I am, just because of the fact that I'm a little cautious about any Green Lantern project. I got to be honest with you at this point. Even if it's a book for this, considering the way things have been going. Oh, that's speaking of which, that's the other thing. Green Lantern sales. That's the other thing.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's actually number one on my list, but my piece of paper was curled upward, so I couldn't see it.
Well, we just talked about the comics, so let's start there then.
All right, so yeah, so often I should say we kind of contemplate. We look ahead, and it's like when we talked about the Fractured Spectrum special that was not so special. It was curious to see how it would sell, and to see. I mean, it's a one shot, so you kind of suspected it would be okay. But to me, the real interesting thing was, well, the whole point of the Fractured Spectrum special was to push people towards Green Lantern 19, because that's the whole point. That's the whole point, really. So, Fractured Spectrum number one, the one shot, finished ranked 52, which is okay. It's dead set pretty much in the middle of the top 100. It's not fantastic, but it's certainly not the worst thing in the world for a one shot. Now, what makes this horrible, and it's kind of hard to, no matter how you slice it, either they did a horrible job in making it clear to people that they're supposed to go to Green Lantern 19 next, or it's a complete repudiation of that one shot. But Green Lantern 19 finished at 106. So it was 54 spots below the one shot. This was by far the worst performance of Jeremy Adams' run on this book. The first time this book has ever been out of the top 100. In fact, I think it's the only time it's really ever come close to the top 100. I think it's only been as low as the 70s before. So that is a horrible, horrible number for that book, especially when you literally had a one shot trying to drive people towards that book. So, and it's also horrible because the whole jokey Wolverine Deadpool thing. It's like welcome to the MCU. You're kind of joining at a low point. That the Green Lantern Corps book is like joining the Green Lantern family at a very, very low point considering these sales. So we will be really curious to see not just how Green Lantern Corps number one sells, which we will assume it will sell fine. The question will be, what will number two be? Because you could have a huge drop off right off the bat, unless Green Lantern Corps for some reason resonates with people while Green Lantern does not. But it is a pretty damning number considering this book seems to have done very, very poorly on its own. When you have, I mean, actually, and when I mean poorly, I mean things that should be boosting its sales very often doesn't seem to work with this book, like the all-in label or whatever. That the sales of those issues with that banner on it have actually sold worse than the ones without it. And now you have the one shot leading into this Green Lantern 19, and it takes this huge tumble. I don't have the last month's sales. I'm pretty sure the last month was in the 60s. I think it was somewhere like around 64 without double checking. So no matter how you slice it, even without a one shot that was supposed to boost interest in the book, that would be a pretty horrible drop. But considering it a one shot paving the way, yeah, that's bad.
We also have the news that this week DC Comics offered a multi-year deal to Jeremy Adams, an exclusive contract. I don't know how many years, just multi-year. But yeah, Jeremy Adams is now currently signed to DC as an exclusive talent.
Which is interesting. Again, timing is everything. Good for Jeremy. Probably was an easier deal to get done before sales came out, but even though to be fair, they probably had the sales anyway. That wasn't going to impact them. And they clearly like Jeremy, and we like Jeremy, but this book, as we've talked about, this book is not exactly, it's kind of been treading water in multiple ways. And now if it starts treading water in the sales department, that's not good. But it doesn't mean even if he gets removed or moves on from Green Lantern, it doesn't mean he's not going to hit on another book. Clearly, they believe in him enough; they want to keep him around. So,
well, he was very successful in The Flash, as we know. So
yeah, and The Flash is another book that's selling like hot garbage right now. The Flash was like 131 last month. I mean, so many of your traditional Justice League characters, minus the the Trinity. Green Arrow was 124. The Flash 131. It's just, even Wonder Woman is number 40, which I suppose for Wonder Woman isn't bad. It's just an absolute Wonder Woman was 24, but that's a resolicit, so that's actually even better. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but it's going to be curious to see if if Green Lantern starts continually losing traction, is that going to pretty much cut the Green Lantern Corps book off at the knees right when it starts? Or, like I said, is it just going to be people might like the flow of the Green Lantern Corps book more, and even if they're not reading that book, they'll still read the Corps book, and that one will be fine. Either way, it won't look good if the flagship title is struggling. Green Lantern Corps, for some reason, gains traction early on.
All right, on to DC Studios news.
Yeah, sorry, yes. So that's actually the news we were going to talk about, where Chad's probably a little more. I'm intrigued. I can't say I'm excited, but go ahead, Chad.
So Gunn and Safran announced several things about the DC Studios, one of which was 3 animated series that'll be coming out geared to younger skewing audiences. That's an actual quote, younger skewing. We have a Starfire series, which I won't get into, but I am excited for as a Starfire fan. We have a DC Superpowers series with the old logo and everything. So I will talk about that briefly because there's something involved with that we'll touch on. But the one we're going to talk about is My Adventures with Green Lantern. Just to read it really quickly, the animated series will follow high school student Jessica Cruz, whose life changes when a Green Lantern power ring falls from the sky and chooses Cruz to be its champion. Cruz's life gets even more complicated when more debris from the Lantern's ancient space war arrives, along with their alien foes. Jake Wyatt is executive producing, with Stephanie Gonzaga as the co-executive producer. Jake Wyatt is currently producer and writer on My Adventures with Superman. And Stephanie Gonzaga, while having some art department credits and stuff like that, was director of a few episodes of the Gremlin Secrets of Mogwai series, as well as an episode of the modern DuckTales. So, yeah, that's the solicit for that. But the brief thing there.
The thing synopsis.
The thing I wanted to mention about DC Superpowers briefly is that, and I'll read the first sentence only here. The animated series takes place at the Alliance School for Heroes and focuses on new students: Lightning, Flash, Plastic Man, Aqua Girl, Terra, and Green Lantern. So they're going to be studying under the supervision of Principal Martian Manhunter. I would assume, since they're studying under somebody and it's a young Green Lantern, I assume maybe this somehow crosses over with My Adventures with Green Lantern. Is Jessica in both? We don't know, obviously.
It could be, and if not, unfortunately, based on it, they might do Kelly, God help us, but It could be. But I would say the odds were strong it'd be one of those two. I like to continuity would kind of make sense because it seems like it's, for the most part, they're trying to achieve some continuity in different genres. But then again, we know Jessica Cruz early on isn't going to really be a Green Lantern in the live action stuff. So that they clearly have some line of demarcation between the animated world and the live action world. But we'll see. I think it's probably safe to assume that that's going to be the case. Jessica probably does make the most sense for the audience that they're going for, and she's enough of a blank slate, and she's not that far removed. De-aging her a little bit probably can still work in this time frame. So
Yeah, for sure. I think the interesting part, I mean, Green Lantern power ring falls from the sky. We've been there before, out of the blue to recruit you into the Corps. That's just how it works. But it says debris from the Lantern's ancient space war arrives along with their alien foes. That could mean one of two things the way I read that. Lantern's ancient space war means just long time war that's been ongoing for as long as the Green Lantern Corps has been a thing, and the Green Lantern Corps is still a thing. Or the Lantern's Ancient Space War, meaning something like this was a fight that happened long ago, and either the foes or the Green Lantern Corps or both haven't been seen in a long time.
it could also be just related to it could be related to the emotional spectrum clearly too.
Yeah,
That's probably where I would kind of suspect it's going to be somewhat related to the emotional spectrum, just because there's so many different ways to go with that. But my initial reaction to this was, I'm sure yours was at least a lot of people's reactions were probably this. It's like, at least it's not Simon. So I guess that's that. I mean, luckily Simon is pretty low on the totem pole. He doesn't check enough boxes for DC to go to put for Simon first and foremost. I don't mind it being Jessica. I mean, it sounds on the surface they're trying to Kyle Jessica's origin a little bit, which if that turns out to be the case, if it's at least 50-50 or more than 50-50 Kyle's origin, then it kind of sucks because Kyle clearly is not in anymore and he's out of favor. So kind of like how people were pissed when they had Kyle show up like in the Superman animated show back in the day, and he looked like Hal and kind of almost had Hal's origin, but it was Kyle. It's the same kind of thing. It's like, well, you like the character's origin enough, but just not enough, but you just don't like the character, or the character's a dirty word and you can't use them. And you and I have talked about this. Changing Jessica's origin from what it was in the comic books to me isn't a big deal because, number one, the Power Ring stuff is really confusing. Not confusing. It's borderline confusing to some people, but it never happened in Green Lantern books anyway. This was all Jeff Johns doing it in the Justice League book. So if you never read any of the Justice League book, by the time you get introduced to Jessica, most of this Power Ring stuff was already taken care of and resolved. And adding it in, keeping it in, just complicates things because we don't have any at the moment. We don't have any of the we don't have that. We don't have Power Ring or anything like that in the new DCU. And her origin, it's not that I don't know how critical it really is to Jessica, other than her relationship with Fear. But you can work around that just by giving her so many other problems that her character already has. Even if I'm going to assume they will modify her origin too, so she's not dealing with, hey, her friends got killed in the woods when she was with her. But they're probably gonna play up some kind of trauma that keep that, and her anxieties that keep her at bay. So I depending what they do, I'm not that upset with modifying her origin. I don't think it necessarily changes her all that much, because we look at Kyle. We know when they started New Guardians, they kind of retconned Kyle's origin too, and making it sound like Kyle was actually chosen when he wasn't chosen. I mean, he was chosen because he literally was the only one around, and Ganthet had no more power left. But they kind of retconned it when they were doing the flashback origin, I think, in New Guardians #1, like he was actually picked to be the champion or something of the Green Lantern. And it's like he never was chosen because of his worthiness, not on paper.
I will say what's encouraging about this is everything in context. We're getting a Superman movie. That Superman live action movie that's going to base. I mean, there's the Creature Commandos and everything that actually kicks things off. But in terms of the general audience, Superman kicks things off, which, as it should be. But the Superman movie is going to have Guy Gardner in it. And then the next live action project is a Lanterns TV series, which, regardless of the news, they're putting lanterns as a priority. It looks like it's a priority for them just behind Superman, because not only are we getting a series, but we're including a lantern in the actual Superman movie. Then you get the announcement of My Adventures with Green Lantern, and regardless of who they choose for it, they called it My Adventures with Green Lantern on the heels of the success of My Adventures with Superman, which has been getting a lot of praise in a lot of circles as far as I've seen. So to share a namesake with a popular series, and then have this guy Jake Wyatt, who's been directing a few of those episodes, take over this project as well, that says a lot, I think, to the audience about what their priority is for Green Lantern. And then you throw in the fact that not only are we getting the live action and the animated series for Green Lantern, we're also going to throw Green Lantern in this other animated series we're doing as part of the ensemble cast. Look, as we can say all we want about how they're bringing Green Lantern to the screen and introducing the concept to the public, which lanterns they choose, the age, blah, blah, blah. And then as we start to see trailers, how they adapt powers or what costume, like we can do whatever we want with that. From the actual announcements, it really feels like, especially with all the jokes made at Green Lantern's expense over the past decade plus, that DC is finally seemingly prioritizing Green Lantern.
Yes, I think I think we can definitely turn the page on the fact that if Green Lantern was considered untouchable since 2011, thanks to He Who Shall Not Be Named, Ryan Reynolds, they that James Gunn obviously doesn't give an F about that, and he's bright enough to realize that you have to have Green Lantern in the universe anyway. So to pretend that that character doesn't exist, one of Zack Snyder's great failings too. That yeah, I think it's very optimistic, and yes, we may bite our tongue about this or choke on our words depending how the series goes, and the fact that a lot of the lanterns we like may and very well end up not being the focal point, which it seems like they won't be unless you're a Jon Stewart fan. But at least we know that they're doing stuff with Green Lantern. We know there's no reason to believe we're not, no matter what happens with Hal in the animated series, in the live action series, that we're not going to see some version of Hal Jordan in animated form too, considering there's nothing stopping them from doing, when the time is right, to do animated movies or flashbacks and things that fill in gaps and why this is important. But it is a priority. It makes sense. It's part of their universe building, and I think that is something we have to embrace, and at least even if you're a little cautious, at least you have to be happy the fact that we're getting something, and there's a chance. Clearly, it could be very, very good. Now, would it make me feel better if these projects involving Green Lantern were actually being written by James Gunn, which they're not? Yeah, I'd be much happier if, for someone who seems to have an interest in focusing on pushing, including Green Lantern, I wish he had enough of an interest where he actually wanted to write some of these things himself. But as an overseer, since clearly they are rejecting, and I mean rejecting at least as in putting stuff on the back burner that has not met their standards yet, or they're having trouble cracking the stories in, like The Authority and other things that are not as high a priority now as for some reason they were when they first started rolling out their projects, that he's confident enough in these things to move ahead. He was confident enough in the Green Lantern show to move ahead, and that's filming now. So yes, the overall focus we should be happy with, that Green Lantern is getting a concerted push.
Yeah, and when you're talking about a company like DC Comics, Warner, DC Studios, they're also that in tandem. Just for those of you who didn't think about it, means they're putting millions of dollars behind Green Lantern. Regardless of how you feel about it, that's the facts. They're putting millions of dollars behind Green Lantern.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
I'll do this. I'll be brief because as big as this was yesterday, now that, as we're recording this on I'm not going to say when we're recording it because the fact that by the time it comes out, there's going to be there may be time for another update on this, several updates, considering we have a lot of episodes recorded and the way they're coming out is up in the air. That at least there's a chance that the long national nightmare might be coming to an end. That Kathleen Kennedy might be leaving Lucasfilm today, as we speak. There's some counter stories to say, well, she might be leaving, but we don't really know that yet. Or there's some evidence. Some sources say, well, they can't confirm it. Now there's a lot of stories out there. Clearly, all the trades ran with it, and it would make sense on multiple levels. It would make sense based on certain things that I heard one way or the other. That even if she's not 100%, if she wasn't telling people herself the fact that there's one story going around that Iger already told her that her contract wasn't being renewed, so she pretty much had two choices. She could just retire or be replaced. So this could be like putting the cart before the horse to try to get her to do what you wanted to do anyway, just because it saves face. But the story did break this week that supposedly Kathleen Kennedy is one way or the other will be gone at the end of 2025 from Lucasfilm, which is certainly way, way, way overdue. Considering even if you wanted to be as kind as humanly possible and give her credit for all the successes, and there haven't been all that many really, to give her a lot of credit for the few successes they've had. She hasn't had a filmed success since friggin' Rogue One, an undisputed home run since Rogue One in 2016. The Last Jedi we know was a cluster, and that pretty much started the downward spiral of the entire whole Star Wars empire under her watch. Now there were things before. I mean, that the chinks in the armor were there almost immediately about some of the decisions she made in hiring the wrong people right off the bat. She hired the wrong writer. And because she and Iger, all they cared about was having a release date before they even had an idea or knew what the hell the trilogy was going to be, or the first movie was going to be about. We want a release date. We circle a release date. So that told you what their priorities were. But long overdue, I suppose, assuming Andor season 2 is still liked by the people who watched it, I guess she can kind of claim she's going out on somewhat of a victory. But we know she had a lot of failed Star Wars projects. Indiana Jones was a disaster. And she also will be known for countless projects that were announced, discussed, promoted, that never happened. And she's going to have a lot of negative on her legacy as a head of a studio. And I actually don't care anymore about talking about people who want to talk about, well, she was a great producer. It doesn't matter. We're not talking about Kathleen Kennedy as a producer. We're talking about Kathleen Kennedy as the president of Lucasfilm, as the head of the studio, and she's been horrible as a head of a studio. It's really amazing she's lasted this long. So we can only hope that we get some new blood in there, because they certainly need new blood, regardless of what you think of Kathleen Kennedy's performance. She's been there, I think, since 2012, I think. I think it was 2012. Maybe, yeah, it might have been 2012. So she's been there way, 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 way long enough, and it's time to get somebody, whoever it may be, to get some new blood in there. But that could be positive if it actually comes true.
Yeah, I guess because of the Star Wars stuff and my indifference, my relative, I guess, indifference to it, that I don't have as deep of an opinion on Kathleen Kennedy. But it's pretty sure it's even from my perspective, it's pretty clear that from the outside looking in, that you would think the Star Wars franchise and such would be you would hope it would be a bigger deal than it currently is for a property of that magnitude. So at least in that regard, I think it's still pretty clear from the outside looking in that she's, failing essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you'll think about it. I mean, we're going to have the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which is basically just a TV show. It's just a, spun off TV show. But as we speak, we haven't had a theatrical Star Wars movie since The Rise of Skywalker. And what was that? That was 2019, wasn't it? I think that was 2019.
I think so.
It was because another thing they did, but they pushed every Star Wars movie off every 2 years instead of the 3 years, which it had historically had been, and was probably better to leave it that way. 2015, 2017, 2019. So so that's a long time for no movie. That would be as bad as it's been for Marvel without any Avengers movies. Just imagine if they weren't releasing any movies at all, even though considering what they've given us, maybe that's in some levels that wouldn't be so bad, which leads me to my last thing. By the time you hear this, our Brave New World episode would have already come out. So just ever so briefly, it does appear as right now that Brave New World is at least holding a little bit better than Quantumania. It's still similar enough where it is following the trajectory, and it's still so far behind Quantumania in actual money that even if it continues to hold by a few percentage points better, it probably won't make up the deficit. It could if it has a really good third weekend, and because Quantumania, I believe, dropped 60% in weekend 3. They are projecting like best case scenario right now that, and you'll have an idea when we're recording this, obviously, since it went out into weekend 3 yet. But best case scenario based on the projections that I've seen so far, best case, they think it's going to drop 50%. So if it still drops 50%, just 50, then that's a 10% improvement over. And then maybe it can make up some of the deficit. There's almost no way it's going to come close to sniffing profitability, even if you believe their $180 million budget number, which almost nobody does. But even if you did, it's definitely still on par and tracking to make less than Quantumania. And Quantumania only made like about, I think, like $463 million worldwide. So that's it. What you got, Chad?
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know that I've been recording and posting things over on TikTok. I'm not trying to be like a TikTok influencer or anything like that. I do, though. My entire apartment is just populated with shit. I've got Funkos, I've got action figures, I've got trade paperbacks, I've got comics in the collection. I have stacked this entire apartment and surrounded shelves and walls with stuff that entertains me or makes me happy in some way. And I have literally nobody to share it with. And I don't mean that to be a downer. I just mean that I don't have people over here. I have a 1-bedroom apartment. Anytime I visit somebody, it's going to their place instead of coming over to mine, because it's really just not feasible to have people in a 1-bedroom apartment. And when you hang out, that's just life. So I don't really get to share this stuff, share collections I've got, unique items, things like that. And I've just taken to doing that on TikTok when the notion strikes. So just today, for example, I unboxed a Pokemon product from China. China actually recently started releasing Pokemon products because they were not putting them out for a long time for whatever reason. And they're just catching up on the various generations of Pokemon that have been coming out all these years by releasing their own products. And then there was some really cool foil patterns and whatever. So the Nerd Fonz over on TikTok, again, I'm not pushing for followers or anything, but if you're curious about the type of shit I have surrounded myself with, comics and otherwise, I have a nice vinyl collection and things like that. I have a couple of really cool guitars, stuff like that, signed novels and books from authors, stuff like that. So like, if you're curious at all, the Nerd Fonz on TikTok, I won't be mentioning it all the time, but I just wanted to take a quick second to let you guys know I am doing things elsewhere when the notion strikes.
That's good. That makes a lot of sense, and I think we all have. I think we're in the same boat that we like to share things that are important to us that we get happiness out of, and it's nice when people can appreciate it and interact too. I mean, I think we all get in situations like that. So
there's just as an example, there's a vinyl in my collection, the soundtrack to the Queen of the Damned movie. It's like this ghostly green vinyl, translucent sort of vinyl color. I bought that on eBay, or not eBay, Amazon for 30 to 40 bucks. That vinyl is worth hundreds of dollars now, because it was the only pressing of it. I don't know if it was a limited. I don't know the details, but somehow it wasn't pressed like when Queen of the Damned came out. It was pressed many years later. That soundtrack, first of all, if you like that kind of music, is incredible. It's got like Korn and Disturbed and like David Draymond, like just a bunch of stuff on there. Really good. If you listen to the soundtrack in the movie, because of the voiceovers they do, it's shit. But the actual music, the real tracks of those real songs, incredible. Great soundtrack. The only time they ever put it on vinyl, and I guess it was a limited release, I didn't know I had a Grail in my collection. And let's face it, guys, one of the cool things about collections is when someone is at least relatively familiar with what you have, flipping through it and goes, "No way, you have this," and just loses their mind. I don't get that. So follow me on the Nerd Fonz on TikTok and give me that validation.
We do not want Chad to cry again. Like, come on, man, work with us. So yeah, I was gonna say something, but now I.
Oh, sorry.
No, 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 no. It was not. It was somewhat related. Oh, you were talking about your interest in general. So I just figured I would let you know because eventually I'll be doing this video soon. I did have my Big Bad Toy Store order ship, so I can do an unboxing of that. Which of course I knew this was going to happen. I knew it. I waited like an extra week to ship stuff, and then 2 days after I had it, I decided to have it shipped. That's when of course my Captain America First Avenger pop comes in. Actually, technically, it hasn't arrived yet at Big Bad. I just got the like pre-arrival or I forget how they describe it, like the notification that it's going to be pre-processed notice that they're expecting it in soon. So it's like, damn it, because that's like the last thing I have. The last thing I have that's supposed to, I think, come in before anytime soon before the ROM figure, which isn't due till June. So that's why I was trying to wait. But instead, there'll be a bunch of pops in this, and that's when my Guy Gardner figure will ship. So hopefully, God willing, I'm not going to get that Warrior alternate figure because Lord knows I do not want that thing. Yeah, you can have it if I get it.
Yeah,
But I
I
don't
want
want.
it.
But I do not want that figure at all. I mean, but that's it. That's all I have.
All right. Well, if people want to reach out to us, how do they do so?
LanternCast.com. The email is lanterncast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Twitter, #GeoCast, Facebook. Like us there. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you listen to us on. Please leave us a positive review. Last but not least, if you'd like to leave us a text or a voicemail, 708 Lantern, and let us know what you think.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.